For my 30th birthday, my family secretly flew to Tahiti without me. I found out about it on Facebook when I saw a post saying, "A wonderful day for a wonderful family." I wrote, "Why?" My dad replied, "We didn't want to waste our time on a clown." I smiled and replied, "Surprise waiting for you." That same day, I made a decision. 2 weeks later, my sister was screaming, Mom was crying, Dad begged me, "We're family, please." Turning 30 hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't about getting older. It was about realizing that maybe I didn't matter to the people I thought would always be there. I woke up early that morning. Emily was already in the kitchen, trying to flip pancakes without burning them. Noah ran into the bedroom with a crumpled card he'd drawn at school, all superheroes and dinosaurs, because that's what I still was in his eyes. I hugged him a little tighter than usual. We sat around the table, eating pancakes shaped like blobs, and for a few minutes I let myself believe that it was enough. That maybe a small, quiet birthday with just the two people who really cared about me was all I needed. But the phone was silent. No missed calls. No texts. Nothing from my parents. Nothing from my sister, Olivia, who I'd practically raised after my parents got tired halfway through raising me. Emily kept looking at me, trying to make conversation, trying to keep the silence from weighing down the room. I kept brushing her off, pretending I didn't notice. Deep down, I was making excuses for them. Maybe they had a surprise planned. Maybe they wanted me to stop by later. Maybe they were just bad with time zones and had forgotten what day it was. After lunch, when I couldn't stand wondering anymore, I opened Facebook. The first thing on my feed was a photo of my family. My whole family. On a beach somewhere that looked ripped right out of a travel magazine. Palm trees, clear water, everyone grinning like idiots. Even my Uncle Rob was there, and he lives 6 states away. The caption underneath said, "A wonderful day for a wonderful family." For a second I thought maybe it was a remembrance post. Maybe something from years ago was surfacing. But no. It was posted 11 minutes ago. Fresh. Bright. Happy. I felt my stomach sink. I stared at it for a long time. I don't even know why I said anything. Maybe part of me still needed an answer. Maybe I wanted them to say it was a mistake. I typed one word. Why? I didn't have to wait long. My father answered right below it, as if waiting for me to notice. We didn't want to waste time on the clown. I remember just sitting there, blinking. Emily was leaning over my shoulder reading it, and she didn't say a word. She didn't have to. I could feel her whole body tense. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just smiled. Because finally, there it was. No more guessing where I stood with them. No more giving them the benefit of the doubt. I typed another comment back. "You're in for a surprise." Then I closed the app, put my phone face down on the table, and stood up. That was when it clicked. I wasn't going to go after her. I wasn't going to sit around and hope they realized they screwed up. If they thought they could cut me out of their lives like I was nothing, they were about to find out what it felt like when the tables were turned. They had no idea what I had done for them behind the scenes all these years. The rent I paid so Olivia could live near her college. The tuition checks I sent each semester without so much as a thank you. The car repairs I covered for my dad when he forgot to pay his insurance. The credit card bills I paid when my mom maxed them out again and told me it was an emergency. It all added up. Silently. Month after month. Year after year. That morning, standing in my kitchen while my son played with his toys and my wife pretended not to cry in the corner, I decided it was over. 2 weeks. That's all it would take. 2 weeks for the shock to hit them. And when it did, they wouldn't just call me. They'd show up at my door begging. They were going to treat me like a clown. They wanted to find out who was running the show. The first thing I did was call the bank. Then the college. Then the utilities. Every single payment I had made for them, I stopped. Olivia's tuition? Gone. She'd gotten used to me quietly paying the balance each semester so she could concentrate on her studies, instead of getting a part-time job. Well, now she was about to get a crash course in financial reality. The rent on her off-campus apartment? Cancelled. The landlord had my number, not hers. I made sure he knew she was responsible for the full amount, effective immediately. My parents' bills? Same deal. Electric, water, gas, internet, everything. They had no idea the low bills They bragged about were because I paid most of them every month. I even called the car insurance company to let them know the next payment wasn't coming. Emily was watching me the whole time. She didn't say anything at first. She just made sure that Noah was busy building a Lego fort upstairs, and then came to sit next to me when I finished the last call. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. I looked at her and realized there was no doubt in my mind. "You made it easy for me." There was silence for the next 2 weeks. Dead air from her side of the world. Not a single message, not a single phone call. I saw more posts, pictures of them drinking cocktails, smiling in the sun, pretending the son they abandoned didn't exist. And honestly, for those 2 weeks, I felt lighter than I had in years. But good things never last when you're dealing with people like them. The night they returned, I knew something was wrong before they even pulled into the driveway. Olivia had texted Emily earlier, asking if we could talk. Emily showed me the message, laughed, and deleted it. Around 8 p.m., we heard a knock on the front door. Loud, fast, the kind of knocking that says you owe me. I didn't make it halfway down the stairs before Emily was at the door. She opened it without a smile. My parents were standing there with Olivia behind them, arms crossed, all 3 of them looking pissed off and sunburned. My mother didn't even say hello. She marched in like she owned the place, Olivia right behind her. My dad hesitated on the porch for a second, then followed when Emily stepped back and crossed her arms. "We need to talk," my mother said. Emily didn't move. "No, you need to listen." My dad began to try to lighten the mood, talking about how they were so surprised to get back to unpaid bills and eviction notices and tuition problems. How they couldn't understand what was happening. How we are family, and family sticks together. Noah started looking down the stairs, confused, so I picked him up and carried him to his room without saying a word. I didn't want him anywhere near what was about to happen. By the time I got back downstairs, the scene had already exploded. Emily wasn't holding back anymore. She tore into them in a way I'd never seen before, laying out every single thing I'd done for them over the years while they treated me like an afterthought. She didn't scream. She wasn't emotional. She was calm. Cold. Sharp. "You bled him dry for years," she said. "And you didn't even think he deserved a birthday call? You're not family. You're parasites." My mother tried to fake a cry. Olivia called Emily a manipulative bitch. My dad tried to play peacemaker, telling me that Emily was poisoning me against my own blood, and that I needed to get control of my household. That was when something inside me completely snapped. I looked at her and realized that I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. "Get out," I said. They stood there as if they didn't understand the words. I said it again, slower. "Out. Out." Emily didn't move from the door until they were all out. Then she slammed it so hard the windows shook. And as I stood there in the silence that followed, I realized this was only the beginning. The next morning it started. First it was a text message from my dad. Long paragraphs about how much they had sacrificed for me. How raising me wasn't easy. How they didn't deserve to be treated like strangers. Then my mom chimed in with a voicemail, half sobbing, half ranting about how Emily was turning me against them. How my wife was controlling me, and how they were losing their son to some woman. Olivia's messages were shorter. Just pure angry entitlement. "You're ruining my future. You owe me. I can't believe you let that gold digger brainwash you." I didn't answer any of them. Emily and I spent the morning taking Noah to the park. We got ice cream. We played on the swings. For the first time in years, I felt like a real family man, not a bank account in sneakers. But ignoring them didn't mean giving up. Not by a long shot. That night, while Emily was upstairs giving Noah a bath, they showed up again. This time my dad didn't even knock. He just started banging on the door like a cop with a warrant. I opened it a crack to see the 3 of them standing there, angry and exhausted, like the holiday high had finally worn off. "We need to talk," my dad said, opening the door wider. I didn't step back. "We already did," I said. My mom put on her broken bird act again, wiping at her dry eyes like she could barely hold it together. "We're a family. You're letting her drive a wedge between us." Emily came down the stairs just in time to hear. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. I leaned against the doorframe and looked at her carefully, as if I were seeing her for the first time. "You know," I said, "it's funny. For years I have paid your bills. Paid for your mistakes. Paid for everything Olivia needed, everything the two of you wanted. And you barely said thank you." They started to speak, but I cut them off. But the second I stop handing out money like an ATM, suddenly I'm brainwashed. Suddenly Emily is the villain. "You didn't lose a son. You lost a wallet." My dad's face fell. He wasn't used to hearing me talk like this. "She makes you think we're the enemy. She's too comfortable, Thomas. She's overstepping. It's not right." Emily laughed under her breath. A short, sharp sound. I turned and looked at my wife, standing there calm and steady, and then back at her. "You think she's the problem? She's the reason I woke up. She's the reason I finally saw you for what you are." My mother started to protest, but I shook my head. "You went to Tahiti without me. You told the world that I was a clown. And you thought I'd just, what? Keep paying? Keep playing the fool?" They had no answer. "You are no longer my responsibility," I said. "None of you are. And you don't get to decide who is family. You've already made that decision." I nodded toward the road. "Go." For a second, it looked like my dad was going to argue, like he was about to launch into one of his legendary guilt trip lectures. But something in my face must have told him it wasn't going to work this time. He turned. Olivia swore under her breath. My mother started to cry real tears this time, but no one cared. Emily shut the door behind them without a word. We didn't talk for a long time after that. We just sat on the couch, listening to the quiet house around us, breathing like people who had finally escaped a burning building. For a few days it was as if the world had stopped. No texts. No phone calls. No surprise visits. Just silence. Emily and I didn't talk much about it. We didn't need to. There was this understanding between us now, something unspoken. We were through begging people to respect us. We were done funding people who thought they were better off without us. It would have been nice if that was the end of it. But people like that don't go away quietly. On the 5th day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name scribbled on the front. I opened it on the kitchen counter while Emily helped Noah with his homework in the living room. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in my mother's neat, dramatic cursive. It was a full-page speech about forgiveness, and blood ties, and a mother's unconditional love. She begged me to come to my senses before it was too late to repair the damage. She even had the nerve to end it by asking if I could send Olivia a check for her next semester, as a gesture of goodwill. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Emily saw my face and came over. I handed her the letter. She read it in silence, then tore it neatly in half and threw it in the trash without blinking. That night, Olivia tried her own version of an apology. She called me from a blocked number. When I picked up, she launched into a speech about how she was stressed out and didn't mean what she said. How she was under a lot of pressure and had made mistakes. How you're my big brother and we shouldn't let stupid stuff come between us. I let her talk. I waited for her to finish. Then I said, "You need to find another idiot to finance your life. I'm retired." She started crying and cursing at the same time. I hung up and blocked the number. 2 days later, my father showed up at my office. I knew he'd find me eventually. He came in like a man on a mission, all fake smiles and fatherly wisdom. He told me he understood why I was upset, but that a real man doesn't let a woman come between him and his blood. That was the moment I realized they really believed it. They really thought Emily was the puppet master, pulling my strings and turning me against them. I sat back in my chair and looked him dead in the eye. "You never lost me to Emily," I said. "You lost me all by yourself." He started to speak, but I cut him off. "You didn't raise a son. You raised a backup plan. And you didn't even bother to hide it." His face changed. For the first time in a long time, he looked old to me. Smaller. Less dangerous. "You made your choice when you booked that flight. You made it again when you laughed about it on Facebook." He tried to say something about how families fight, and families forgive. But I shook my head. Families also know when to stop taking advantage. I stood and pointed to the door. "This conversation is over." He didn't argue with me. He just gave me a long look, like he didn't recognize me, and walked out. When I got home that night, Emily was waiting for me. She must have seen something in my face because she didn't ask what had happened. She just took my hand and led me upstairs, where Noah was already asleep. We sat in the dark, listening to the soft breathing of the little boy who had no idea how much lighter our lives had just become. It was strange how quickly peace settled over the house once they were out of my life. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to a crisis. No phone calls about a faulty transmission that had somehow become my problem. No emails from Olivia about needing another 1,000 for books she never bought. No emergency dental bills from my mother that seemed to magically appear every 6 months. Emily and I actually had time to sit down and think about what we wanted. We talked late into the night about moving someplace quieter, someplace bigger for Noah to grow up in. About finally taking that family trip to Europe that we kept putting off because, what if your parents need something? We had stopped living for them and were just beginning to figure out how to live for ourselves. But something in my gut told me it wasn't over. Not really. And sure enough, my lawyer called on a Tuesday afternoon. "They've been making inquiries," he said. "Your sister tried to call the college and say you agreed to keep paying. Your parents tried to say you had an oral contract to support them. I've sent warnings. But you should be prepared. They're desperate." It was almost funny. They couldn't believe the free ride was actually over. They had thought they were untouchable for so long, it never occurred to them that I could just stop. I didn't react. I didn't reach out. I let them stew in it. Until Saturday. That afternoon, Emily and I were in the backyard with Noah, working on a half-built treehouse. It was a perfect spring day, warm, clear, the kind of day that makes you believe everything can begin anew. Noah was handing me nails, one by one, as if he were my official foreman, when I heard the tires screeching out front. I didn't even have to look. I knew who it was. I told Noah to stay with his mom and went around the house. Sure enough, there they were, my mom, my dad, and Olivia, standing in the driveway like they were getting ready for war. But this time they didn't come empty-handed. Olivia had a skinny guy with her, late 20s maybe, with greasy hair and a clipboard in his hand. It looked like she'd picked him up at a rent-a-lawyer stand at the mall. "This is my attorney," Olivia said, as if the words alone would frighten me. The guy cleared his throat and said he was here to serve me with a notice that I was in default of my familial obligations, and that if I didn't reconsider my financial responsibilities, they would take appropriate legal action. I stared at him for a long time. Then I laughed. Hard. Real, gut-wrenching laughter. "Good luck," I said, reaching into my back pocket. I handed him a thick envelope I had prepared just in case they pulled something like this. Inside was every payment I'd ever made. Receipts, bank transfers, email trails, even screenshots of my mother begging for help and me replying that it wasn't a loan, it was a gift. The kind of evidence that would turn any courtroom attempt into a public humiliation. I watched Olivia's face drain of color as her lawyer flipped through the pages and realized exactly how bad it looked for her. My dad tried to intervene, puffing up his chest and talking about how a real man doesn't abandon his family. Emily chose that moment to come around the corner, still holding Noah's hand. She smiled at my dad. "A real man knows when to take out the garbage." For a moment, I thought my dad might actually swing at me. He was shaking, red-faced. But he didn't. He turned, muttered something under his breath, and walked back to the car. My mom followed, but not before giving Emily a look like she was going to kill her. Olivia wasn't done, though. She tried one last time, her voice shrill, desperate. "You're going to throw away your real family for her? For some nobody?" I looked at her calmly. "You made yourself a nobody the day you decided I didn't matter unless I wrote checks." And then, because I couldn't resist, I added, "Good luck finding someone else stupid enough to finance your addiction to designer handbags." Emily snorted. Olivia turned scarlet. Her lawyer began to back away to his car, as if realizing he had inadvertently joined the losing team. They pulled out of the driveway in a cloud of dust. Emily, Noah, and I walked back into the backyard as if nothing had happened. I hoisted Noah into the half-built treehouse and promised him we'd finish it before summer. As I hammered in the next board, I realized something. It didn't hurt anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I just didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their weight. I was free. A month passed. No contact. No drama. It was almost eerie how quiet it stayed. I kept half expecting something, a last-minute guilt trip, a fake medical emergency, some new disaster they'd concocted to drag me back in. But nothing came. Emily and I signed papers for a new house 2 towns over. Bigger yard, better schools for Noah, no reminders of all the years I wasted being her safety net. Life was finally moving forward, clean and sharp, like a knife slicing through all the garbage we had left behind. I had almost begun to believe that the nightmare was over. Until the letter came. It wasn't from my parents. It wasn't from Olivia. It was from a lawyer, a real one this time, representing a financial institution I didn't recognize. Inside the envelope was a bombshell. My parents had taken out a massive personal loan 6 months ago. And they had listed me as a co-signer. Without my knowledge. Without my signature. My stomach sank. I immediately called the attorney listed on the document. After a tense conversation, it became clear they had forged my signature on the paperwork. And now that they had defaulted on the loan, the bank was coming after me. I felt sick. After all this, they were still trying to bleed me dry. I got off the phone and sat there staring at the wall, feeling the old anger creep back in. Emily came into the room, saw my face, and sat down without asking anything. She just waited. When I finally told her, she didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She smiled. "Good," she said. "Now we bury her properly." She was right. I hired a forensic document examiner. I paid out of pocket to have the signatures analyzed. Less than a week later, the report came back, 100% forgery. With this evidence in hand, my attorney filed charges of fraud and forgery. Real charges. Not civil ones. Criminal ones. This was no longer about money. It was about principle. It was about making sure they couldn't ever do to me or anyone else what they had done. When the police showed up at their door, it wasn't a polite knock. It was a full search warrant. I heard later that Olivia cried hysterically as they led my father away in handcuffs. My mom passed out on the front lawn. It made the local news. Emily and I sat on the couch that night, eating popcorn and watching the report. It felt surreal. The story had spread through our town faster than I could have imagined. Respected community couple arrested for forging son's identity in $80,000 loan scandal. People who had once whispered about what a bad son I was suddenly didn't know where to look when they saw me. The fallout was swift and brutal. They lost their house. Olivia lost her place in college. Financial fraud doesn't mix well with student loans. They became exactly what they accused me of being, nothing. The irony was almost too much to bear. A month later, after everything had settled down, I found a handwritten note taped to our new mailbox. It simply said, "We're sorry." No signature. No explanation. Emily and I burned it without even reading it twice. Noah finished his tree house by the end of that summer. We put up a tire swing. Started planning our trip to Europe for real this time. Sometimes, late at night, I think about it. About how quickly it all fell apart. About how loyalty and love and family only means something if both sides believe in it. But mostly I think about how good it feels to finally live a life they can't touch. And how funny it is that the clown they were laughing at turned out to be the only one who knew the whole show was a joke. Update. We had been in the new house for about half a year. Life had settled into something good, peaceful, normal. I hardly thought about them anymore. Even Noah stopped asking why Grandma and Grandpa didn't visit. Then one morning, Emily got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But this time it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to her. She read it slowly, her face unreadable the whole time. Then, without a word, she pushed it across the table. It was from Olivia. Apparently she'd been thinking about everything. From jail she'd gotten 6 months for her part in the fraud, probation, community service. Nothing that would make up for what she had done, but just enough to make it real. The letter wasn't asking for forgiveness. It offered a deal. She said our parents were up to something. A new scam. She said they were trying to pin the whole thing on her, cut her out, and disappear. New IDs. Quietly moved to another state. She claimed to have proof records, bank statements, phone backups, and she was willing to turn them over. But only to Emily. Not to me. The last line of the letter stayed with me. I've realized something. You married the wrong person. But he married the right one. Emily read this part twice. Then she folded the letter neatly, put it in a drawer, and said, She wants attention. Let her rot in silence. I agreed. But a week later, Emily quietly sent it to my lawyer. Just in case.